Hey, good afternoon, friends. Welcome back to the Paws and Profits podcast. I'm Karen Laws, the interior dog trainer. I'm so excited today to have my very good friend Lesley Zoromski with me. Lesley's a passionate educator. She's been teaching for over 15 years. She started dog training in 2003, and surprise to me, she's also an artist. She has helped thousands and thousands of dogs, and also her passion of teaching with kids, elementary school kids. She's brought those two things together, and she's here today to share with us all of the great things she's achieved and the great things that she has to offer families and their dogs to live a successful life. And you're going to want to stick around for the whole session because she's got some great things to show you at the end. Welcome, Lesley. Thanks for
Thank
joining. I'm so
you.
excited.
Thanks, Karen. Happy to
So
be here.
excited. How long have we known each other? It's been a while.
Well, I joined IACP in 2007. So that was when Martin Dealey was there, and
Yeah.
we have met there. And I remember sitting down, having a conversation at a table with you, and just being delighted to talk to you. So
And dogs. Yeah.
yeah, just talking dogs, exactly. So it was probably back in 2009 or eight or
Yeah,
something.
back in the early days. And then that's how I come across this because we follow each other. That's how I came across this. At the time, I used to go into schools and I often have families, but I remember I had a particular situation of a dog bite in a family, and I came across I had contacted you, and you had developed this dog and child safety program, and I have since used it and distributed it and sold it, and usually I give it away for free as a gift to my families with dogs and kids. Tell us about the program and tell us about the viewers here and listeners. So for those of you that are listening but not on YouTube, you'll miss the graphic and the cover of Lesley's really cool sticker book program. But tell us what the inspiration was for that and really what the concepts are within it because it's a fabulous program. I love it.
Thank you so much. Really, back in probably 2013, after I had already been working for 10 years with dogs, I work at a board and train facility in Petaluma, and I went to the owner and said, I think that we really should be capitalizing a little bit more on my background with children and the background with dogs. And why I started to put something together is when I would meet with parents that had children and dogs, I found that kids did not know how to really read body language that they were looking at. The parents didn't guide them in a way that also kept safe interactions. So they didn't realize it wasn't safe to go up to a dog that's sleeping and put your face down, or go and pet the dog while it's eating. And if the dog was tolerant, they just thought it was an amazing dog. But, they're not all like that. So I wanted to have sessions where parents and children and the dog would come in together and they could do hands-on activities, which is, as a kindergarten teacher and second grade teacher, kids learn best by sort of using their hands besides getting up and moving around and doing chase games and things and learning what you can do with the dog. I didn't want to just focus on what you can't do with the dog. So hands-on activities originally started with me going to the store and getting magazines and cutting up pictures and gluing them down. And then I started to think it was very successful. I wanted it to be mass produced. And I had this vision of having it in the local schools. So after I had it mass produced, I approached schools and started to focus on the youngest of the children, hoping to get this into one grade level across all of the local schools. That worked. It just kind of kept building from there. After I learned about all the dog bites and how many of those dog bites are really focused on, there's, 4.5 million every year. More than 50% are to kids. The biggest range are 5 years old to 9 years old. So focusing on the transitional kindergartens, which are 4 years old, and the 5-year-old kindergarten, those were the ones that really started to benefit, and they're like sponges. So they loved it, and I love going and teaching them. So there was a combination of getting in the schools and also teaching classes at the board and train facility.
The stats that you mentioned on dog bites and over half of them being kids, and what percentage of those bites are from the family dog?
There's 77% are from dogs that are familiar to the dog. So a lot of times they were either their own dog or a grandma's dog or their aunt or uncle's dogs. And I mean, I know of so many situations that this has happened. And oftentimes it's at a holiday event, people are busy, and Yeah, so it's very, very high. It's not from stray dogs on the street.
One of the things that, I'd like to your input on this. One of the thing I get a lot of people sending me videos for my response or reaction, and the ones that really just make my skin crawl are the ones where mom's in the background with the camera on the baby, and the baby with their little hard baby boots are crawling up the dog or sticking their face in the dog's face, and the mom's laughing. And the last one that came was a mastiff type dog. It was old. It was trying so hard to be good, and the kid just kept coming up and touching it on the face. Finally, the dog just turned around and put the kid down, and I went, "There's a kid that's traumatized for life." The camera went off, and that was the end of the video. Those videos,
I can't even watch them.
no,
I
I can't.
honestly, I can't
I
even
want
watch
to
'em.
scream. I just want to scream when I see them.
Yeah, 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 because it's coming to you too late. It's already happened. And so the goal is to get to people ahead of time. It's
Mhm.
one of the reasons I don't have aggressive dogs in the game showing that is because people do get that, but
Mhm.
they don't get the subtle signs.
Right. Yep.
So I'm all
Odd.
about learning the subtle signs, and that's what I love to teach kids is the subtle things that you can.
So show our viewers some of the subtleties that are just a few of your favorite ones that are in this book, because when I first opened it up and saw it, I went, I mean, like you say, you and I as trainers, we go, "Oh yeah, well, of course," but
Right,
kids don't know. And what I really love is the not only the stickers, but the guide that goes with it,
right, right.
so that teachers don't have to be experts.
No, exactly. So the some of the subtle things, when a dog is sleeping, this is an old dog that is sleeping. There's a couple things happening here. First of all, I talk about the kids to recognize something about that dog that it's old. It's totally asleep. It's sitting on the furniture, which might mean it might have some more privileges. It might think it owns that piece of furniture. And just getting them to start thinking about things like that. I love to break this one down because most kids, if you see any of my videos on kids and canines, when I'm in the schools, I will post and we play a game where kids get to vote if this is a safe dog or not safe to pet. In this game board, there we are basically playing this in the classroom where we have a two-sided board. I draw it on a marker board, and then I have big pictures of this. I've actually had some dog trainers buy the set of all of this, and then I'll ship it to them, and they can do the same thing. So
Mhm.
that's something if you are a dog trainer and you're interested in buying the whole set, you can, of large pictures, you can. But getting them to break down that body language, the mouth, the back,
Mhm.
the way it's curled, those are the subtle signs that a lot of even adults and kids don't recognize. And they might say, "Hey, it's scared," but what does that mean about that? What
That's
happens if
right.
you go closer? So that's what I love to talk about. They get thrown off by this one. They always think it looks either happy or aggressive. But
Mhm.
what might be an issue with going and interacting with a dog that's that excited, where everything is
Right.
on the dog? The reason I didn't do this so that it was just user friendly for just kids is because parents don't understand to model the behavior or what they should be looking at
Right.
either. Creating this with all of the information about the stickers, when this gets sent home, these are all bought, given to the kids. They go home, they need to play it with a parent. Then the education is spread not just to the children at the school, but it actually gets into the home. And that was my goal, is to get these free of charge into homes
Through the schools.
for the schools. Yeah.
I love that. I love the multidimensional audience that you built it for, because it's so true. And even when I read through some of the way you describe it, like, it's not that as trainers some of us think we know all that, but then you made some statements like, "Don't assume this or assume that," and also often as trainers, depending on personality style, you're busy telling the kids, "Don't do this, do it this way. Don't do this, do it this way. Don't do this, do it this way." So they have this visual, plus they have the description, plus they have the engagement of the family, and I love that. So for people, particularly trainers that are out there thinking that you make this look extremely easy, like you just cut out pictures and you make a sticker board and here you go. Walk us through the process. Walk us through the business side of this. You talked earlier about building. Started out by cutting out pictures, which I love that. And, who has time for that? So good for you. And
Well, you know what you're doing there, you can do it really fast though. So I did it really quickly.
right, and then getting, yeah, you know what you're looking for, and then getting it to market. But I wanted to emphasize for our viewers and listeners that tell us about the revenue stream on this. What is your Kids and Canines company?
So the kids and canines, well, how it's moved moved into me making some money on this is that, first of all, people can go onto Kids and Canines and buy their own copies.
Okay.
Shelters have ordered sets of these, and I give discounts based on how many the numbers. So if you order over 20, then you can get them at a very discounted price. Because I have mass produced these, I'm still making money on these when I'm selling them. The animal shelter buys, I think this year it will be close to 900 kids that I will have met with this year. This was kind of a gangbuster year, though. This was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, word's getting out there. But the animal shelter funds this. So initially, though, when I had these made, I went on foot to businesses locally and I asked them if they would sponsor. And that took a lot of time and it was difficult. A lot of doors closed in my face. Then it was hard to get actually into the schools. That was another door closed on the face because they don't have the extra money. So once I had the local animal shelter who decided that that was a great thing that benefited them as well, and they don't want to see dogs coming in being surrendered. So it just, it helped families and it helped shelters. So them funding it, that actually benefits me financially.
Okay. So but you're doing their work for them.
I'm doing the work.
They don't have time to do it. The shelter.
They don't have time. They don't have time. They don't have educators. That a lot of people love working with dogs and helping dogs, but they're really not great at. You have to want to work with kids. You have to want to. You can't help the dog until you help the parents and then the children, which are connected to the parents.
Because you registered, Kids and Canines is registered as a nonprofit.
It's a nonprofit, correct?
Yeah. So it's not like you're not doing this to dip into family pockets. What was you mentioned earlier, what grade level did you teach?
I was certified kindergarten through 8, but I found because I was a puppeteer growing up and I loved reading books to kids that I really gravitated towards kindergarten through 2nd. So all of the years that I taught, I sort of bounced around in those grade levels, but I actually love teaching and working at the board and train facility with kids that are, older than that, the 9 and 10-year-olds, and how easy it is to communicate with them and how fast they are to learn. But you have to at first make them very comfortable if you're going to be working with kids.
And how do you do that?
So the first thing I do is they usually come into the session with their parents. And let me just say that as a trainer, I break this down into 2 parts. I need to know the dog's personality. I want to understand the kid's personality. So I start with about a 20-minute phone call and find out what are the goals for the parents? What are they wishing? They usually say something like the dogs are biting or nipping or jumping on the kids. But then I usually ask, are you having any issues? So this is where just being a good trainer and understanding, having the background of that helps, because I would ask them, they'll say, yes, the dog jumps on us, pulls on leash, and it generally ignores us. So then I want to meet with them first, without the kids.
With the parents, without the kids. Okay, good point.
So that I can read the dog's personality and we can start addressing I don't have children do assertive corrections ever. What I tell the parents to do with the dog is not the same as what the children do.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the parents have to, and maybe, for the parents, we can use a simple penny can for some of these things. They can be the backup for the kids, but they're going to be the ones that are the leaders of the family, and the dog is going to view as a leader. Dogs don't look at kids as leaders. They have a hard, you can try to help them put the kids in a leadership position, but generally dogs, and I'm talking about a lot of young children. You can have kids that are starting to get older become leaders, but it's hard with the little ones. So I just don't want them to be too assertive or too aggressive with the dog in any way.
Because they don't understand the dynamics.
Right. When I said kids can't be leaders, it looked like you were thinking, well, yeah, I think they can be leaders. I was just
it depends in certain elements and in certain age categories. What I find in my classroom is I teach the kids to walk through the dog space. Now, once again, the caveat is it depends on the dog's personality and it depends on the issues and the behavior issues that they're there. But what I find in a lot of cases, not toddlers, not kids that are bouncing around in diapers and invading the dog space. But once they're in that 5 and up type age and they've watched mom and dad, I do find that the dogs actually respect the kids, because the kids that I've dealt with in that, like I say, 5 to 7 or so, they're in their own heads. They don't really care about the dog. So they'll just push through the dog space. They might pick up its toy on the way by. They know better. The dog takes its toys, usually better than the dog knows. But I find that I'll start a lot of things and conversations just by talking about the importance of owning space and use the kids as the example, because they don't consider, they don't worry. But that's the parent's job, I suppose, is to worry. But I do see that in certain situations that the dogs actually respect the kids more than the parents, because the kids have no worry, they have no baggage, and they just get the job done. That's not a leash walking and so on. That's just coexisting in the house.
Yes, yeah. In that regard, if you're looking at it as the child taking a leadership role, I agree with you 100%. Yeah. I just don't want them to think that they can be the boss and that they're going to be solely responsible, which is sometimes
there.
say, I want my child to be in charge of the dog. So in that regards, there are just things that kids do. And I have actually a blog post on that was very popular, one of the first ones I wrote, about the 3 things that kids do that make dogs kind of look at them as though they are not projecting leadership personality types. But you can
What are those 3 things? What are those 3? What are the 3 kids?
they are overly emotional.
Kids, yeah.
Yeah. They are active and they're moving a lot.
Erratic, yeah.
Or adults can be. And you know what? Now that you asked me, I'm trying to blank on the third one. I'm going to have to go look at my own post.
I always tell people that, and they smell funny. A lot of kids smell funny. They smell different to the dogs. They're jerky movements. They're not predictable. Like you say, they'll cry or they
Yeah,
scream.
they're not predictable. They're not consistent. I think that was like
Yeah.
what they're not consistent with what they do, and the dogs are like,
Yeah.
But you can help them learn. You can help
course.
them learn this is what you're doing that's creating some of the issues, and they'll try to change it.
And teach them
Can't
how
tell
to be
kids
consistent.
can't tell kids not to run. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, yeah, it's really hard. I mean, they're gonna run. They're just gonna
Yeah.
run.
So what do you do to counter that?
So I think you've done basically the same type of thing. It's sort of the red light, green light. So we actually, once we find out when the kids come in to make them feel comfortable, I'll sit down and I'll ask them, what do you love about your dog?
Mhm.
And get them to tell me, what don't you love so much? What do you wish was changing? Sometimes it takes a little coaxing because they don't know what that means. And if it's the jumping on them and the nipping at them, then we talk about how they're turning that on with the dog and how they can turn it off with the dog. But they have to take some responsibility. So we actually get some running in the training room. And the key would be to get them to recognize the dog is starting to move towards them. And then it's the standing still, freezing. And I say, it's almost like you're putting on an invisibility cloak.
Ah, yeah.
I said, and then we model this, for them, tuck your arms, stand, have your feet still and look away.
Yep.
And I tell them, show them, what is the dog's going to do? It's going to come forward. And usually it's like a shark going by a boat. They kind of swoop by and they go off. And I said, and then you can carry on. You have to be very aware and realize your part in it.
Yeah, I love that game. It's my favorite game, and kids love it because kids, as you say, kids have to run.
Yeah. Yeah, they're just to say don't run is ridiculous.
I want to switch, not switch gears a bit, but so that was your first digression, if you like, or your first marrying. It wasn't digression. You took your passion for training dogs, your skills as an educator, and you rolled them in together to a product, not because you were trying to make money from it, but because you believed in it and you saw a gap and you wanted to fill that gap. So and it's taken. And when did you launch that program, Kids and Canines?
The Kids and Canines was launched originally in 2016. Actually, it was an LLC right away. Then we flipped it to a nonprofit in 2017, and that's when I got into the schools.
Okay. So not that long when you consider, the slow pace of getting product development going and so on. And now, and I know from my time around, it seems when I take dogs into town all the time. And when I used to work in town, I used to find kids would run and they jump on the dogs. I don't find that anymore. I find a lot of them, even though they go run up to go to grab the dog, and you'll see the parent right there and go, hey, you better ask.
It's getting better. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're having an influence.
I think there's, a lot of organizations that are making an effort to do this. So it certainly isn't you're just me and you. But I do think I'm starting to see it too. but it does help. You cover, 900 kids a year, you're bound to start, it's gonna spread.
Gonna start just because if each one, what's the stats on one person knows 8 people, so you just start to project that in the influence.
Yeah.
And for trainers that are looking to expand what they teach or broaden their
Right. Yeah.
offerings, so to speak,
Right.
this Kids in Canine sticker program, it's totally laid out, like, everything's laid out. The whole lesson plan is there,
Yep.
the
Yep.
goals, who's involved, what the directions are, so they could purchase a bunch of these packages, and even if they did or didn't sell them, they can use this as a foundation and broaden
That's
from
right.
that, so
If they buy enough of them, they can get them inexpensively enough, and then they can, charge a little bit extra, so,
yeah.
yeah, and that's what some trainers have been doing, so I've been meeting others around the country. Yeah.
So we'll have all those links to for people to get access is in the show notes,
Super.
particularly for those that are on YouTube. It'll be in the description. So your next venture, which I caught me didn't catch me off guard. It was when I saw it. I went, well, of course, it's perfect. And you were kind enough to send me a copy of this, which is your latest venture on rescue dogs, and I can't stop talking about it. I show it to I've talked about it on my Instagram live podcast. I've talked about it to my students in my dog training academy for dog trainers. So tell us about the motivation behind this and the process, because look at this. Look at how cute that dog is. There's some psychology here. I love this. It looked like a cartoon, but when so you talk about it. I looked at that and I took my critical eye not to criticize the book, but to go, why is this so attractive?
That's so nice. Well, colors and a lot of things were thought about to put it together, but
Yeah.
thank you. And I do wanna have you mentioned that you said that when you read it, you cried both
I
times
still
you
can't
read
read it without crying.
I know, right? I have, and it touches me too. So one of the reasons that I wrote this book, and I have to just link it to when I was teaching in the 90s, I taught an empathy unit, and I don't think they have time to do that anymore. They try to just get it in, but having a set time of day that you would look at images and get the kids to talk about how that other person feels and what's going on in that picture. It's important to bring empathy into their lives, and what does that mean? So thinking about the dog's perspective, kids, yeah, they look at things through their eyes, but you can start to help them start to think of how does the dog or any other animal feel? A gerbil there's no water in the water bottle. You know what I mean? I think you have to think about that. Knowing that empathy is so important, and working with families that were coming in, that I was seeing how many people are saying, well, I have a rescue dog, and this dog from the shelter, and my own dogs that have been, the one that we have now was returned to the shelter a couple of times for behavioral issues. And there's so many common things, behavioral issues that dogs do that get them bounced back to shelters, or you don't hear about a lot of it until you start talking to a person. Then they'll say, oh yeah, we had a dog, we didn't keep that dog. People don't want to talk about that. They will often say they've got to rehome the dog. So when I'm meeting with people, sometimes I'll see it's a bad marriage, it's a bad match. They picked the wrong dog for their lifestyle, their family. They had an image of what they thought, but they didn't really think it through. They didn't realize the work. So I wanted to have a book that, although this is written for children, my hope was that the parents would read this with them. And in the back, I have questions.
I love that. I love that part in the
Questions,
back.
answers. That's the teacher in me, to get them to think more deeply about the story. And then I also have some resources back there. And it's funny, I'm looking at some of the books behind you, and it's like I was reading books when I got done with this, and one of them, and Mark Goldberg, you talked to recently, I read one of the books, and I'm like, oh my God, this mirrors exactly about living with your dog.
Yep.
So this is in child form, but adults can definitely benefit from it, and it creates empathy, and it also just points out, be patient, get professional help. You may think the problem can't be solved, but it probably might be. And then if it's not really a right match for your family, then you need to think about how do you help that dog get to the right match, which is tricky.
Yeah, back to the acknowledgments. You said some of your favorite books and resources, and I looked at that and I went, I've got every one of those books. That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wanted to put a few things in there for things for children, like that. There's an app for trick training, things that related directly to pieces that were within the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I heard you say was people saying to you, well, I think we're going to have to take him back, and behaviors that we know as trainers can be fixed, but the families are just hopeless. They feel helpless. In many cases, and I'm getting to the point is, how long does it take before they come to that conclusion? How hard do they try? In your experience, from what you've seen, sort of behind the impetus on this book, what's the average rate of return, the average return time, not rate of return, but how long do families try before they say this isn't working, we're taking the dog either back to where we got it, or
Yeah, kind of. And I think it kind of depends on the family because a lot of people get a dog and they don't want to think, oh God, now I got to spend more money on training. So it could be fairly quickly, and it
Mhm.
could be where they take some time and think, well, let's just do a phone call because we kind of think this dog is super sweet, but we don't know what we're doing.
Right.
So how long does it take? I think there's just a range. I think it can be right away
Mhm.
depending on what's happening and they realize, "Oh my god, this is not going well." They're busy households, they're always so busy. How do we start solving these problems? "Oh, we didn't know it wasn't housebroken. Oh my god."
Mhm.
The dog's too nippy and bitey, the kids are screaming, they thought it was gonna be their best friend. Those dogs might go back really fast. So
One of the things yeah, and you cover that. You touch on it indirectly here. One of the things that I think I know myself, but many trainers find is people make assumptions about rescue dogs. They assume that because they've, quote, rescued the dog, he should be grateful. He or she should be grateful. And once again, it's that phrase of seeing the world through the dog's eyes. So in my trainer world, I see people who are committed to doing what the dog needs. And they, right, like you say, right off the bat, no, I've had 15 dogs in the past. I've never had one like this.
right,
So those are the ones that maybe haven't done it right with 15 dogs. They just had 15 good dogs. And now they have a dog that knows how to think on its own and it's not having
right,
they're offering. So for trainers in the room here, people that are watching this that are trainers, I highly recommend that you not only read this book if you haven't had a lot of experience with people with wild rescue dogs, because rescue dogs aren't grateful. They're usually fearful,
right.
and they will launch to defend themselves, because what's the dog's number one priority in life? Survival.
Survival. Yeah.
So this works both, and if you're thinking of adopting a dog, read this book first, and because it also, and as you say, every shelter should have one. That's just when I read that, that was a given. Like every shelter, every humane society should have a stack of these at the front for people
Thanks.
coming in that are just sort of shopping and picking a dog out because it looks pretty or it
Right.
looks sad
Oh my
or
god. Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Often buy a dog just based on the color or the markings or something like that, not looking at the personality at all.
That's right. I remember reading a story of a lady that turned her 2 German short-haired pointers into the Humane Society because she changed the decor in her house and the dogs didn't match
She should not have dogs.
in the first place.
Oh,
I'm not sure for
that's
animal I don't I'm not even gonna go there.
oh, I don't like these stories.
I just had a twisted joke that I'm not gonna
Yeah.
say it.
Yeah.
So, what you said, you mentioned when we talked earlier that you have, and I what I do, and I'm sure you do the same, is we encourage people, if you're thinking of adopting a dog,
Right.
call a trainer first.
People would do that, would save them so much time and money, and I have had a few people contact me that know me really well, but it's rare. It's always after the fact.
Yeah, and what are the so you mentioned you have you have 3 top what are your top 3 questions that you advise they ask when they're thinking of rescuing a dog?
Well, I really like, if people are thinking about adopting, not thinking about the way the dog looks or the breed, but
Mm,
thinking about the temperament, the personality, because, so I just was writing down some of my notes here. You need to find out, so first of all, do they get along with children? If they can ask that question, does this dog get along with children? If they can get that answer, that would be fantastic. If it's possible to have the dog be with the children at your home, in
a
the
trial period?
trial period, if that's
Okay.
possible, that might help a lot. You have to do some kind of a meet and greet. You have to see, but hopefully if you can go to a foster family that's already got kids in the home, the dog has been being fostered there, that's already going to tell you that they get along. Then you really want to say, what's that temperament, of that dog? Is it high strung? Is it nervous about life, or does it seem like it just has that really nice, easygoing tolerant personality. And what kind of training needs is this dog going to have? If you have a super busy household, does this dog have a lot of issues? And that's why, getting a puppy is challenging. People do think because I have kids, I have to start with a little tiny, but they don't realize how much work. They never realize the work. And if they had a puppy before, it was so long ago. So
Yeah, forget. It's easy to forget how much work a puppy is when
yeah,
your last dog died at age 12, and that was 3 years ago.
yeah. So the training needs are big, and getting a dog that might be a little bit older, and it could be a year, it could be 2 or 3 years old, that you have maybe a little bit of background. It's housebroken. It's past the nippy stage. It's not jumping on the kids. That's a win
Yeah,
right
for
there.
sure.
And then if you can find that great personality, so those would be the key, I think.
There's one key element that I always ask people
Yeah.
when they're thinking of adopting a dog.
Right.
All of those things plus who is going to do what? How will the dog fit into your daily routine and your lifestyle?
Yeah.
Because you can't just get the dog from the shelter one day and take off for 10 hours to go to work the next day.
Which is what's in the book, which is hilarious.
Yeah, yeah, you touch on that, but that's something that people don't think about because they go for the emotion. I don't go near shelters anymore. I don't. I used to volunteer at our local shelter every day after work. I
Yeah.
don't anymore because I couldn't stand it.
Yeah.
I see how easy it is for people to just, "Oh, let's just drop in," because A, they think it's free. It's not free anymore,
I
thank
can't
goodness.
do it either. I can't do it either. I have to shelter, afar by doing this other stuff, but I don't
Mhm.
like going. I don't like
Yeah.
staying up.
Well, and I love that as a trainer. I racked my brain about how could I contribute more to the shelter. So I do help people, I give them special rates and so on. But I think products like developing products like you've done here with
Thank
this,
you.
rescue dog book as well as your kids and canine sticker package, that is so that's monumental to help shelters have a higher success rate, to help shelters help families and to help dogs and families indirectly, like the tentacles that reaches out to in a positive way are
Thank you.
endless. So
Yeah.
for people that are looking, as a trainer looking to diversify their revenue streams, this is think of what is like not just running around collecting free towels and food and all that sort of thing, but what are some actually engagement types of things? It's going to be hard to beat this book, I have to say, just because of
Yeah,
its
to keep
simplicity.
dogs from being returned,
Yes.
or maybe they weren't returned, but they adopted them, and they don't want them to come into the shelter.
Shelters aren't innocent in all of this either, and I've seen so many lately, especially bad matches, as all the COVID dogs are now being returned because
It's
they're
so
not social,
true. That is so true. I see the same thing.
and they're trying to flow them through, so the
Pull
first
them through,
comes along
and
with
the
my
like a statistics of how many we've had this many. Exactly.
yeah,
Instead of like, is it a good match? Is it really gonna stay there? Yeah.
that's right.
I think one thing I like having practical tools to use and resources,
Okay, yeah,
and that's one
yeah,
thing I love about your live podcast or your live, like Instagram, is
Instagram,
that it's so practical, and I think, it's one thing to if you're a trainer, to dazzle people with the fact that your dog is dancing around your legs or staring at you the entire time that you're walking down the street, but I always think, what is the most practical and helpful for a regular family
yeah,
that's out there? I just think, can you have the dog learn how to hold boundaries and wait and have polite manners and not pull on leash and things like that. And
yeah,
to have enough tools in your toolbox as a trainer. I've had a lot of the consults that I get. I don't know if you get that. They are sort of rejects from great big rescue organizations that have had their trainers work with these people. And they come in to me sometimes in tears because they feel like failures
yeah,
because they were told they can only do it this way and use this tool. And what
mhm,
I would want more trainers to be able to do is open your minds up and learn all of the things that are available, and that there aren't things that are, that are, villainous, like, I don't know if that's a word, but, don't villainize tools, learn about them.
that's right, yep.
And
The dog training world is as polarizing as politics right now, and what I'm hearing you say is don't fall into that.
And if you're a trainer and you're just gonna go like this to what saying, then people that own dogs don't just accept what someone else is telling you. If it doesn't seem like it's working, fine. There are others like us out there that we have. I want to learn all the tools, how to use them. What's the personality of the dog? What works to make people successful and the dog successful and feel good. And that's how I like to, go after training and meeting with people. And I think you do the same thing.
I'm the same, and when someone oh, we could this is a whole story on its own, Leslie. We could stay
I
in the
know.
stable all night and talk about
I
this.
know.
And, I think that when I was training dogs for competition, I used to train field trial labs for field trial competitions. Never used food. Never used food. I didn't need to because I taught the dog that the work was the reward.
They were so
And then
fun.
when and the dogs, that's how they function. And I have a Malinois that's the same. He doesn't, he cares about food, of course he does, but he cares more about something he can put in his mouth. More, that's his reward.
It sounds like our Vishla. He was all about the ball, not any food.
Yeah, yeah, give them something to focus on. So when I shifted from when I left the competitive world and shifted into pet dog training, it was an I mean, that was a long time ago, and it was an eye opener to me that a dog didn't want to retrieve.
That's right.
And Martin Dealey, bless his heart, he was a field trial competitor also.
And he's
Pet dog. So
yeah.
we had great talks at great lengths, and he really put my feet back on the ground, a lot, with some of the conversations that we had, and then Mark Goldberg, the same thing. Mark Goldberg was one of my early mentors, and it was using that food to get at least the dog to acknowledge you. So,
Right.
in my view and in my experience, and now it's been 20 years later, food is an integral part of the way I train, but it isn't all food. And every day there's some way that somebody does something different that I go, I want to know more about that.
Yeah, and understanding the dog, each dog's personality, what motivates them. So you have to, just like with children, you have to find out what their motivation is, and then that's why again, going back to having enough tools in the toolbox.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fine. I call it finding their hot button. Like, what's the dog's hot button? And most of and I'm sure other people, they leave here and they go somewhere else. I don't know, but I find I get it the other end. They come here, and I'm sure you had the same thing where the dog's wearing a certain type of tool that I don't say I never use that. I just say I never use that, but you can use it if you want. But I'm going to show you something different, and how would you like to see how that works?
That's what I do. Yeah, let's
Yeah,
experiment. Let's try this out with this first
let's
hour.
try this on.
Right.
Yeah, and then you
Watch
tell
the
me,
body language.
and then I let them feel it.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, everything is a role play, and so many people don't want to be tied to a food pouch for the rest of their lives with their
No,
dog.
that's right.
So there's always options to do that.
And
So
I think there's a lot of times there's so much focus on treats and giving, which I do use food for a lot of stuff, starting behaviors.
yes,
But to make sure that you are sort of balancing what's allowed and what's not allowed, figuring out what's the way of communicating to the dog, in a nice way that I don't accept that behavior. Let's try this instead. That's what I am a big fan of, like, just a penny can. I don't know if you use penny cans, but it makes a sound. For me, it interrupts a behavior, and then it's like, now tell the dog what you want.
yeah. I use a towel. I use a bonk. It's a bonk,
Okay, same thing.
or sometimes an air gun. Just
Yeah, it's the same thing.
interrupt.
It's
Yeah, yeah,
interrupting something, and then it gives you a nanosecond
yeah.
to
But one of the things, there's all kinds of there's all kinds of different options, and the more, I don't know if you found this, the more I find, the longer I'm in the game, the more I remember what I forgot. I've forgotten things that because I don't use them, and then all of a sudden, just last week, a drill came out to teach a dog to stop biting. I have a lady with a nippy puppy, and I said, and whereas we get caught up in this, don't do that or scream or whatever people
yeah,
do,
yeah.
or throw food in a different direction to get them to chase the food. This drill was none of that, and I
Was
used
that one where you were holding the dog? Was that
yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting because I actually have to say, I had not seen that exactly. So, I was watching, all I was thinking was, "You better do that before that dog is too big to hold."
Yeah, that particular dog wasn't a good example, but I did it. I had a little beagle here. I don't know if you've seen some of there's more videos coming out with little Lotte the beagle, and I did it with her, and they had already been doing that at home. They were former clients of mine, so they already knew from years ago.
Yeah.
And, as I went to put her down, she got snarly. She's like, Are you not doing, you're not the boss of me," was that kind of attitude. So I just scooped her back up and hugged her, and she went right back soft, and she never gave me that behavior again.
Oh, wow,
So
that's
that was
cool.
one drill, but there was also another one that I learned years ago from, Bahesha Doan. I don't know if you know Bahesha, but at the, Disabled Veterans Academy, was
Okay.
how to prevent dog bites, but how to teach. And this is another Casey Cover trick on the easy drill, just teaching the dog to roll on its side and change the state of mind. For nippy puppies, it worked really great, but those are drills I haven't used in quite some time until you start,
Sure.
things start happening and when it's
Sure.
in your head, it comes out. Why do I talk about that? It's the power of mentorship. Keeping an open mind to more tools can only be facilitated when you're ready to listen and you reach out to people that have been there, done that, instead of trying to figure it out.
And it has a great quote. It's be curious, not judgmental. And I think if we more people were like that with everything,
Yeah.
including all of the political whatever with dog training or anything,
Yeah.
be curious.
Yeah. The thing to watch is just as a message to those that are either, well, dog trainers or dog owners looking for help. I understand. I understand the skepticism. Be wary of what you see and hear online. And in every possible case, go to the source. If you want to learn someone who knows about rescue dogs, then go to someone who's written the book, so to speak. And the value of mentorship is priceless, as opposed to signing up for something, spending thousands of dollars, not talking to the person, not meeting the person. In all of the COVID aftermath, if you like,
Mhm.
people are just, I sense now, just coming around to everyone has shifted online so quickly. Just be ready, look for those relationships, whether it's with a dog or with a human. It's relationships. Done something earlier, and I want to come back to it, about personalities of breeds,
Yeah.
dog personalities versus human personalities. What have you, as a teacher, you would understand
Yeah.
important people's, how different and unique, particularly with kids, their personalities are. How does that line up with the work that you've done with your kids and canines program and with what you've seen in your rescue dog
As
work?
far as dogs and their personalities, you mean?
Mhm.
Breeds? I mean, they're born with kind of a core self, dogs, and you can, if I want to, as far as lining it up with, I love to be able to take my own dogs into schools, but I don't have a dog that
Mhm.
has the personality that wants to go into school. He's not geared that way, and neither was the Vizsla that I had before. You could just see it. So you have to be looking at the personality. Is the dog enjoying what it's doing, or are you getting those early body language signs that say, I don't want to be here? No, because then you're pushing things to go sideways.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
when I work with people that want to have therapy dogs, I have to look at that dog and say, is that dog? And I'll be able to cherry pick. But some dogs, if they're nervous, they were sort of born nervous, and people either can help them deal with that nervous Nelly personality, or but they're always may revert back if they're put in the wrong situation. Those
Right.
dogs, as far
It's
as
fades.
or yeah, they need space, and you have to just accept that as an owner. And it people like to categorize breeds and say, all golden retrievers are like this, all yellow Labradors are like that.
Yeah.
And, they don't realize that within every litter of puppies, you're going to have a range of, you might have the low level follower, to the dominant. And then there's all these in between. And what do you need for a family? What do you need if you're going to be taking a dog in? You want it to be a therapy dog. And am I answering the question?
Yeah, one of the thing where I was going with that was I study in my academy for dog trainers. I learned this in another business that I brought it into my dog trainer school. I teach a lot about people personality styles.
Yes.
Everyone is a makeup of a certain set of personality styles. It's just a matter of which is more prominent than the other. But that reflects on the dogs that they choose or like or are well matched with. So when we have the luxury of someone calling us and asking what breed they should pick, if I have a little assessment, I have a little test I do with them to find
Yeah.
out what their personality style is, and then I can recommend a suite of breeds or breed mixes, because genetics matter,
Yes.
as well as a suite of breeders. So versus going back to the shelter thing, where meek little mom and big tough dad walk into the shelter and they see a dog that's cowering in the corner, and mom feels sorry for it and dad doesn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, that'd be bad.
And yet it could be the best dog ever. So breeds and personalities, there's a system and a process to match them. Really, the intention of the message, or where it was going with that, was not many. We don't get the chance to line people up with the breeds very often.
Right.
And
No.
if people take anything away from this, it's think before you think about who you are and what your lifestyle is,
Yep.
and what you can tolerate in anything, and that's gonna help you match up the dog. And the example that I use is I recently had a returning client. She'd been a client of mine 15, 12 years ago with a lab, and he passed away, and she wanted another dog, and she just didn't want a lab anymore because, we all 20 years is 20 years, and things are different. So I did the little assessment with her, and then I gave her a suite of breeds I would recommend, and we actually were in alignment with my first pick or first suggestion. It wasn't my pick,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
first
yeah.
suggestion. And then she ended up with a puppy with a slightly different breed, but a personality that is a perfect. He was a service dog reject, not because of personality, but because the breeder just decided, I think, that it was better to find the right home for her than to hang on to her as a circus
Good.
dog and hope someone came looking for one. And so it's perfect. So the message is, it's important as a trainer to recognize the personality styles in your clients. And even if they already have the dog, then we've got to bring those traits, the common traits together and recognize how to deal with the differences.
I think one of the things that I try to do, it can be, I mean, oftentimes we'll see the moms and the families that are, they've got the personalities where they want to do everything for the family members, do everything for the dog. They might be overly accommodate, and the dads that are not doing it, but they may be being more successful, or I might have one or the other that are overly dramatic hotheads, and they think that yelling and authoritative with the dog is going to solve it. So sometimes when people come in, sometimes the dads will come in and they'll be very reluctant to be there, and I'll be able to kind of win them over with, I want them to be successful. So this is kind of the approach I go, and I'll say, I want you guys to be successful, and these are the things that probably aren't helping you be successful. And this is how the dog is the reason it's not working for you is because when you're a hothead and you're over the top, this is the way the dog is processing it. And so if you want to be successful, you have to kind of get to know them and get them to work together as a team. But the personalities it's key in getting them all to line up.
Yeah, for sure, and a lot of that comes through in your Kids and Canine sticker book package,
Oh, thanks.
because you involve the whole audience, so it helps the trainer pick out the tough guy dad and the over helpful mom and the kid that's caught in the middle. The key message here to trainers that are watching is ask, 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 and then really listen. Really listen to their answers, because oftentimes new trainers especially will just walk in. Let's face it, people call trainers because they need help. They think
Yes,
that
right.
trainer has the skills to fix their problem, and they're trusting them to do that, and the trainer knows that. So instead of taking the time to build the relationship just like we teach to do with a dog, they go in and right away start giving them orders. Well, you can't do that, you've got to do this, and you can't you got to do this. And my approach, everyone should have a big form at the beginning to get clients to fill out, but a softer, and I think you have to go slow to go fast.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that
Yep.
book, Thinking Fast and Slow. So you have to go slow to go fast, and you slow right down at the beginning and ask all of those probing questions, and sometimes as simple as, "What do you do for a living?" When a person tells me they're a nurse or a teacher or an engineer, I've got 3 different personality styles there that I know kind of what the core elements are, and then I can ask more questions along the way to verify that.
Yeah, yeah,
That's going to help the trainer understand how to build an approach that's going to help the dog regardless of what
right.
personality it is. If you have a hothead guy, like you say, that's just gonna yank the chain on a dog that's already bit 3 people, it's not
Yeah,
gonna go
yeah, exactly.
fast.
Yeah, talking, I like to talk with people on the phone. I don't know if all the trainers at the training facility do the same thing that I do, but I put probably more time in because I feel it benefits me and it benefits the clients. So I will call them and probably talk for 20 and sometimes longer to understand, and they'll be very honest, especially if the other person isn't there. This is
Mhm.
what's happening. And I can start to get the personalities and the issues that they're having, but start to read the personality. And of course, when we all meet together, then you're seeing the dog and reading how they are too, so you can start to pull them together.
Yeah, because 'cause you've got a foundation to start from. I like to do that, sort of have a pre-meeting before the meeting.
Yes, yeah,
Right.
and of course, I do that with the kids big time because I wanna find out what are the kids' personalities? What's
Mhm.
your 4-year-old daughter like? Why has she gotten bitten twice in the face already by the 9-year-old dog? What's happening there? And sometimes it's, changing kids' behavior. Another on post that I have on the Kids and Canines website is if it's not really the dog that's the issue, it's you trying to change the child's behavior. And when I was a teacher, we did behavior modification contracts with the kids.
Neat.
And the kids have to actually sign it. You come out with something that they're working for, and then you can break it down into, 2 times a day, 1 time a day for a week to change. But if you don't hug the dog or do this, you get a sticker. Or something.
I love that.
Then you have something bigger at the end. But I have the forms actually that people can download if they want. Right on.
I love that. I love that.
So it's important to get
Yeah.
all the different moving parts, especially if there's multiple kids.
For sure, in the same family, and they're all different personalities.
Yeah.
Lesley, we could go on and on.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, time has just flown by, and we're actually ending right about where people are gonna go, "Well," so we will have to come back and talk more about that contract for sure.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, how can people learn more about all of the wonderful gifts that you are and that you have to share with them? Where would you like them to go?
So, kidsandcanines.com, and
And that's how do you spell that?
it's kids, like kids, and then I have a dash,
Mhm.
and a lowercase n, and another dash, and the letter K, the number 9,
Mm.
numeral 9, s.com. I should
Okay.
make that simpler a long time ago, but I didn't know any better. So kidsandcanines.com, there's a lot of guidance and games and helpful posts, but also on the homepage, you can buy the product if you are interested. There's a contact section if you want to. You can send me an email if you have questions about ordering. If you're a trainer and you want to get multiple sets, or you run a rescue. And there's a portal right on the homepage. If you want to get a copy or copies of the book, you just click on that and it'll take you. Amazon has made it really, really super easy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I don't have is your link in that website? The link to your
It's
store?
I think I sent it the link for the book,
Yeah.
an email.
Okay.
An email to
We'll
you.
put that in the notes for people that wanna know because
Okay, yeah, anybody that, and they can order it right from you if you end up putting it in your shop or something, something like that.
All right.
But
Well,
it's pretty
Lesley,
cool.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it is cool. Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. And for all of you that are listening, look at all those cool resources in the background there. That's the I love that dog. I think everyone wants to have a dog that looks just like this dog. It's like Rex. Like it was so cool. And so remember, for those of you that are listening, share this episode with a friend because you don't want anyone to struggle when they don't have to. And we're all in it for the same thing to make the lives better for dogs and their families.
Yes,
So that
absolutely.
dogs can stay in their forever homes and families can be happy to have them there. And one more thing, you had mentioned that you will provide signed copies of this book if
Correct.
people want them. How can they get one of those?
Yeah. So let's say you decide, and I love the hard covers that I have at the house because they have these beautiful inserts in the front and the back.
Nice.
Yeah, they don't do that for the soft cover books, but they do it for the hard covers. And these are $20. But what's nice is if you go to the Kids and Canines website and go to the contact, we will just talk directly. Just send me an email and say, Lesley, I'd love a signed copy of your book. Could be the paperback, it could be which are $10. It could be the hardcovers, which are 20. And then besides signing it to whoever you like, I'll put in one of these great stickers of the main character Rex.
Cool.
And then it talks about taking care of a dog when you get it. And there's the website right down there too.
I love that.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, and kids can put their names on the back.
Oh, perfect. I love that.
So
So just go to your contact, go to Kids and
go to the
Canine.
contact. It'll say Lesley at kidsandcanines.com. Send me an email, and then we'll just exchange. I'll have to pay, and then you'll give me your address and what you want written in the book, and then we'll just get it all taken care of.
Love that. What a great gift. What
Yes.
great Mother's Day is coming up. For Mother's Day, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So good.
Summer birthdays, graduation presents, get a dog. Let's go. Yeah, and have a signed copy right from the author. Perfect. I
Yeah,
love that.
that would be
All
nice.
right. Thanks so much, Lesley.
All right, Karen. Thank you. It was such a
Take care.
pleasure. Okay.
Bet.
See you again.
Bye.